23 years plowing snow routes in northern Minnesota, and I've never seen a winter like this January. The storm that hit us 3 weeks ago wasn't just bad weather. It showed me how quickly people can turn on each other when things get desperate. I work for the county, running the night shift plow route that covers the rural areas outside of town. It's usually peaceful work, just me and the radio, keeping the roads clear for the morning commute. Sure, you get the occasional stuck car or angry resident wondering why their street hasn't been plowed yet, but mostly it's routine. The storm started on a Tuesday afternoon. Weather Service predicted 8 inches, nothing we couldn't handle. But by midnight, we had 20 inches and it was still coming down. The wind picked up, creating whiteout conditions. Chief sent most drivers home, said it was too dangerous to stay out. But I knew there were still people stuck out there, trying to get home. Around 2 a.m., I got a call about a stranded car on County Road 23, about 12 miles outside town. Middle-aged couple trying to get to their daughter who was in labor. They'd ignored the travel advisories, thinking their SUV could handle it. Now they were stuck in a drift, running low on gas. I told dispatch I'd check it out. The road was barely visible. Snow blowing so hard my plow lights only reached about 10 feet ahead. It took me almost an hour to go 6 miles. That's when I noticed headlights behind me. At first, I thought it was another plow, but it was moving too fast for these conditions. As it got closer, I realized it was a pickup truck, riding my plow's path. Not unusual, people often follow plows during bad storms, but something felt off about how close they were staying. I found the stranded SUV right where dispatch said it would be, but when I pulled up, I saw the couple wasn't alone. 3 other vehicles had found them, all stopped in the cleared path I'd made. 7 or 8 people were arguing outside the cars. Turned out the couple had called everyone they knew with 4-wheel drive, desperate to get to the hospital. Now all these vehicles were stuck too, blocking the road. Everyone fighting over who should get helped first. The pickup that had been following me pulled up, 2 more guys getting out to join the argument. That's when things got ugly. One man started yelling about his kids being home alone. Another said his mother's oxygen machine would stop if the power went out. Everyone had an emergency. Everyone needed help first. I saw someone push the pregnant woman's father, watched him slip on the ice. I called for backup, but with the storm getting worse, I knew help wouldn't come fast. These people were scared, cold, and angry. 20 years ago, they'd have worked together, figured something out. But something's changed. People are quicker to turn on each other now. I managed to get the pregnant woman and her husband into my plow truck. Told everyone else they needed to return to their vehicles. One man refused, tried to climb into my truck's cab, said his emergency was just as important. I had to threaten to call the state police before he backed off. The couple's daughter was born the next morning, safe in the hospital. The storm dropped 32 inches before it was done. We found all the stranded vehicles eventually. Everyone survived. But I keep thinking about how quickly those people turned desperate. How fast they forgot about helping each other. I still drive the night shift plow route, but now I carry extra supplies, blankets, food, first aid kit. Not just for the people who get stuck in the snow, but for when they start turning against each other. Because sometimes, the real danger isn't the storm. It's what fear does to people when they think no one's coming to help. Last week, during another storm, I saw that same pickup truck following a different plow. Found out later that 3 stranded motorists reported having their supplies stolen by someone in a truck, matching that description. They're taking advantage of the bad weather now, using the plowed paths to find victims. I've got a new rule these days. I don't stop for multiple vehicles anymore, no matter what the emergency is. Call me cold, but I've seen what happens when desperate people think you're their last chance. In my 23 years on this job, the storms haven't gotten much worse, but the people sure have. Some of my coworkers think I'm paranoid, say I should trust people more, but but they weren't there that night, watching neighbors turn on each other over who deserved help first. They haven't seen how thin the line is between civilization and chaos. All it takes is enough snow to block the roads, and suddenly everyone's looking out for themselves. I'll keep plowing through the night, keeping the roads clear, helping who I can. But I'm more careful now about who I stop for, more cautious about who I trust. Because in the end, it's not the cold or the snow that makes winter dangerous. It's the way some people use it as an excuse to show who they really are. Running an ice fishing rental business in northern Michigan isn't exactly a get-rich-quick scheme, but it paid the bills. 10 heated shacks out on Lake Mitchell, mostly weekend warriors and tourists wanting the authentic winter experience. That is, until I rented Shack 7 to John Anderson. He wasn't like my usual clients. No fishing gear, just a laptop and what he called research equipment. Paid for a month up front, wanted the shack furthest from the others. Said he was studying winter fish migration patterns for the university. I should have checked his credentials. The first weird thing I noticed was his schedule. Most ice fishermen come at dawn, but Anderson only showed up after dark. He'd work through the night, leave before sunrise. I figured maybe he was tracking nocturnal fish behavior. The cache had cleared, and he wasn't causing problems. Then the complaints started. Clients in nearby shacks reported weird noises at night, not normal lake sounds. They described mechanical whirring, like power tools. When I checked during the day, Shack 7 looked normal, but I started noticing holes in the ice that weren't made by any auger I'd ever seen. Too wide, with strange markings around the edges. Last Tuesday, Anderson called at midnight. Said his heater was acting up, needed me to check it. We'd had a warm spell, making the ice conditions tricky, but he insisted it was urgent. When I got there, his research equipment wasn't environmental monitoring gear like he'd claimed. Looked more like sonar, diving equipment, heavy-duty stuff. He was nervous, kept checking his phone. Said he'd found something in the lake. Started rambling about shipments, drop points, how certain people would pay to recover things from under the ice. That's when headlights appeared across the lake. 3 snowmobiles heading our way. Anderson panicked. Said they weren't supposed to come tonight. The ice was too thin. He started grabbing his equipment, but the weight was too much. We heard it first. That deep, resonant crack, like the lake itself was groaning. The snowmobiles were getting closer when the ice gave way. Everything happened fast after that. Anderson and most of his gear went into the lake. I managed to grab him with my rescue pole, but he wouldn't let go of this waterproof case he was clutching. The extra weight nearly pulled us both under. The snowmobile lights turned around when they heard him screaming. I got him out, but he was already going into hypothermia. Called 911, reported it as a fishing accident. When the paramedics took him away, he kept muttering about something still down there. Police searched the lake the next day, found a sealed package stuck in the lake bed, right below Shack 7. They weren't too interested in sharing details, but I heard enough from the dive team. Turned out Anderson wasn't studying fish. He was locating old drug drops. Cartels had been using the lake for years, dropping packages through the ice in winter, retrieving them in summer. The police closed my business for 2 weeks during their investigation. They found 3 more packages scattered across the lake bed. Anderson wasn't even his real name. The university had never heard of his research project. I reopened last week. Had to move all the shacks to a different part of the lake police orders. My regular clients still come, but everything feels different now. Every time I hear ice shifting at night, I wonder what else is down there. What else has this lake been hiding? I still run the shacks, but I've changed how I operate. No more long-term rentals, no more solo fishermen, and when people ask about Shack 7, I tell them it's under maintenance. Some things are better left frozen under the ice. The strangest part? Last night I saw snowmobile lights out on the lake again. They circled the spot where Shack 7 used to be, then disappeared into the darkness. This morning, there was a business card stuck to my office door, blank except for a phone number and a dollar amount with lots of zeros. I tore it up, but I know there'll be more. People like Anderson, they talk when they get caught. Tell others about the quiet lake with the helpful rental owner, about the perfect spot for dropping things that nobody's supposed to find. I've started looking for other jobs, maybe somewhere inland, because I know that sooner or later, someone else will show up with research equipment and too much cash. And next time, they might not take no for an answer. After all, the lake keeps good secrets. It's the people you have to worry about. When Pine Ridge Resort offered me the maintenance supervisor position, it seemed perfect. Good pay, free housing and staff quarters, and during off-season, just basic upkeep of the main lodge. What they didn't mention was why they had so much trouble keeping staff during the winter months. I started in September, learning the routines from Mike, the previous supervisor. He kept emphasizing the importance of checking guest records, making sure every room was accounted for. Seemed excessive for a 30-room lodge, but he was insistent. Said there'd been problems with people sneaking in during storms. The first few months were smooth. October brought the usual leaf peepers. November had early ski season tourists. It wasn't until late December that I noticed something odd. During a heavy snowstorm, I got an alert about power usage in room 214. According to our system, that room was empty. In a winter resort, you can't ignore potential heating issues. I grabbed my keys and headed up. The room was locked, no signs of forced entry. But when I opened the door, I found evidence someone had been there recently. Wet boot prints, snow melting on the windowsill. I reported it to manager Sarah Chen, who surprisingly didn't seem concerned. Said it happens during bad storms. Locals sometimes break in, looking for warmth. Told me to just change the locks and update the security logs. But it kept happening. Always during the worst storms. Always in different rooms. We'd find small things missing. Food from the kitchen, supplies from housekeeping, first aid items. Camera footage would show nothing. Keycard logs were clean. It was like these people were ghosts. Then came the January blizzard. Weather Service predicted 3 feet of snow, winds up to 50 miles per hour. We had a small group of guests, mostly stranded travelers who couldn't make it down the mountain. Around midnight, I got another alert power usage in room 412. Not just lights this time, but the kind of spike you see from multiple appliances. The guest registry showed 412 as empty. Sarah was gone for the night. Roads already too dangerous for travel. I decided to check it myself. The 4th floor was quiet except for the wind howling outside. I could hear the generator humming in the basement. We'd lost main power an hour earlier. As I approached 412, I noticed boot prints in the carpet, still wet from melted snow. I knocked first, no answer. Used my master key. Opened the door slowly. The room was occupied all right, but not by someone seeking shelter. They'd set up what looked like a medical station. IV bags, monitoring equipment, surgical supplies laid out on clean sheets. Before I could process what I was seeing, I heard footsteps behind me. A man in winter gear, carrying more medical supplies. He stopped when he saw me, his expression shifting from surprise to something colder. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Close the door and walk away, for your own safety." That's when I heard a vehicle outside, impossible given the storm. Looking out the window, I saw a snowcat pulling up to the service entrance. 3 people were unloading something long and wrapped in blankets. The man was still watching me. "Last chance," he said. "Walk away, forget what you saw, or become part of it." I'm not proud of what I did next, but I've watched enough true crime to know when I'm out of my depth. I closed the door and walked away. Spent the rest of the night in my office, watching the security feeds. Around 4 a.m., the snowcat left. By morning, room 412 was empty. No trace anyone had been there. Sarah wasn't surprised when I told her. Said it had been happening for years. Certain people using the lodge during storms, when no one could get up or down the mountain. Rich clients who needed medical procedures done quietly, without questions. The lodge gets paid well to look the other way. I understand now why they have trouble keeping maintenance staff in winter. Most people can't ignore things like this, but the pay is good. And Sarah made it clear that looking the other way is part of the job. I'm still here, still doing maintenance. But now, I have a routine during storms. When I get alerts from empty rooms, I mark them as system errors. When I see wet boot prints in the halls, I have housekeeping clean them quickly. And when I hear the snowcat at night, I stay in my office with the door locked. The winter season's almost over. Soon we'll have regular tourists again, normal maintenance problems. But I know when next winter comes, when the storms roll in, those alerts will start again. Empty rooms drawing power, mysterious guests appearing and disappearing. Sarah says I'll get used to it. Maybe she's right. After all, every business has its secrets. At least here they're confined to storm seasons. But sometimes, during bad weather, I look up at the fourth-floor windows and wonder what's happening behind them. Wonder if someday, someone won't give me the choice to walk away. I've started keeping records, just in case. Dates, room numbers, patterns. Not because I plan to do anything with the information. The money they pay for silence is too good. But because someone should know what happens at Pine Ridge Resort during winter storms. Someone should remember that sometimes the most dangerous things aren't the weather or the isolation, but the choices we make to keep our jobs.